Hi everyone, welcome to Voices of Western, the Humans of Western podcast.
This is where we delve into everyday stories of students, staff, and faculty on campus.
Be sure to check us out on Instagram at humans_Western.
You can also find us on TikTok, YouTube, and our Facebook page, Humans of Western. My name is Zainab.
And I'm Kevin. Today's episode features Cashmeira, who is a second-year Neuroscience Masters student, as well as a TA here at Western.
She did her Bachelors of Science at Ontario Tech University.
Now you can find her in the lab researching the relationship between Propionic Acid, PPA, a naturally occurring gut metabolite, and the onset of autism.
We had a great time hearing about Cashmeira's many experiences in TAing, graduate studies, and research. We hope you enjoy as well.
So welcome to Voices of Western. We have a great guest today, Cashmeira. So I guess maybe instead of me introducing you, you can maybe give us a little introduction about yourself.
Sure. So here, let me scooch on closer to the mic here. Hi everyone, I'm Cashmeira. So I'm a second year master student in neuroscience. And this is I've actually only been at Western for grad school and during COVID, so that's super fun. But, I still really like it and I love it here. But I guess we can just hop on into the questions because everything else might overlap if I say more.
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess you talked about grad studies. What drove you into that?
Okay, so during undergrad, I was kind of grappling between do I want to be a dentist? Do I want to be a doctor? Or do I want to do research? I really didn't know. What I did know, though, is that I hated doing tests. And I was like, well, you don't have to do tests to get into grad school. But yeah, so a lot of my friends or people in my school, I saw them studying crazy hard for the MCAT. And I think the DAT or the DAT's what it calls for dental school. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. Plus, I really was thinking that I wanted to be a professor instead of a doctor or dentist. And I was like, you know what? Let me see what research is like. So luckily, even though my school didn't have that much research opportunities, I was able to get a fourth year thesis. I worked with fish, fun. They were rainbow trout, and I was making them food by breeding mayflies. I don't know if you've seen a mayfly. It basically looks like an ugly dragonfly mixed with a moth thing that
Sounds very yummy.
Yeah, so I literally had to count the little baby eggs in a petri dish and put them in a tank. It was a lot. A lot of them died too, so it was very sad, but that's okay because the fish didn't die. But yeah, so I've decided I liked research, but I wanted to do something that wasn't fish. And Western had so many opportunities for animal research, and I got in with one of the PhD students in my lab. I met her. When you get accepted into grad school, you get a conditional acceptance, and sorry, oh my gosh. Okay, on the Zoom call right now, Kevin has two faces and one of them is frozen and the other one is where was I talking about rats, right? Oh yes, the PhD student in my lab. I met her in February 2020 before COVID. I had my hopes high. I was like, wow, Western's gonna be so much fun. There's so many events and I can meet so many people. Lies, but that's okay. Because she ended up being the person that I went in, her lab is the lab that I ended up going into. So she's the only person I actually had a meaningful conversation with. And then she's like, oh, let me send you an email to my professor or my supervisor. And I had sent an email to his co-supervisor who doesn't respond to emails. But he's like, it's not personal. I'm just I don't reply and I am bad. And I'm like, okay. But his co-supervisor emailed me back right away and he's like, oh, you have an interview. And then I got in, so that's very fun. And that's how I got into grad studies. Also, you have to have sorry,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, also you have to have decent grades and decent school participation. So did a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, how was the application process? Like, was it long or pretty
Oh,
straightforward?
definitely. Even now, like I'm applying to PhD programs and like you have to have two academic references, which like when you hear that it's not bad, but like when you don't talk to professors, it's very difficult. And luckily, like I had my supervisor at the time for my fourth year thesis, and I did have like a bunch of professors. I sat like near the front. My school was kind of small, so like the later year courses only had like less than 100 students. So me and my gang would like sit up near the front and like say goofy stuff all the time. So our profs knew us. So like one of them was like, yeah, like I'll be a reference. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So he was
Paid off.
my supervisor. Yeah, he's the real one. But yeah, so you had to have those, and then you have to like make a giant essay pretty much of like why you want to go to that particular school. I pretty much made like a skeleton of that for like all the schools I applied to. But
yeah, I mean, it's only realistic, right? Like,
yeah. And
It
applying
sounds
now.
very much like the, no, that's okay. This sounds very much like a job application process. Like I feel like especially with things being online, maybe it would help to have like a better portal for like potential grad students to talk to professors, because it sounds like it's very hard to get in touch with them.
Yeah, it really depends like who's active on their emails, because when you get emails like even me as a TA, I'll get so many emails a day and I'm just like, do I want to go through all of these right now when the answer is in the syllabus? Like, do I really want to read this? But
Yeah.
and a lot of things get lost. Like you'll get an email every day now for like, oh, back to school, Western, do this survey or the thing they have to do to go on campus. And then yeah, and if you have like an Amazon account and all those random emails.
Yeah.
So, what? But if there was like a specific portal and like a time or something, like a even like a meeting like thing, like like an office hour for like potential grad students, and you only have it open for like a week for like applications, I'm like that'd be smart, because then you can like have everything timed out and nobody can have letdowns. I don't know, that would be a good idea though.
Yeah, I feel like, I guess like the overall institutions are still getting kind of used to like this whole transition thing. I know like Zainab and I, we talked to a prof a few days ago, and like he mentioned that even if he took a minute to answer questions from students, he has just so many students that it would take approximately, I think he said 50 hours a week. So it's just like the scale of these things are sometimes bigger than like I imagine. So yeah, hopefully they come up with like good solutions, because it's definitely necessary. You mentioned like you didn't really want to do tests anymore, which I was gonna ask, like, so how is like the evaluating process in grad school? Like, how does it shift or change?
So in grad school, you actually only need like a certain amount of credits to graduate, like aside from your research thesis. So you have a seminar usually that you would do, which is basically you'll present your research one day of the whole year. And for the rest of the year, you watch like other people present their research, and there's like 4 presentations a day or a week. And then a lot of times there's a guest speaker, and you get marked basis off your participation of attending. So you have to attend more than like 75% of the time, and then your presentation. And then you can take like, I think it's like 1 or 2 courses if they're like half credits or full credits. Like I took a coding course. I did not even need to take that. I'm very sad that I took that, to be honest, because it was very difficult for me. I hated coding. I took a beginner's coding class in like first year undergrad because it said it was suggested, highly suggested. I was like, take that suggestion and throw it out the window because I don't like it. But I took it because I was like a little keener, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take the suggested courses. Yeah. Like I don't even know. Like it was so hard for me to even like code a triangle out of like asterisks. Like I don't know why. I just couldn't figure anything out. And then I decided to take it again and torture myself.
What?
Because my supervisor's not the same course now in grad school. So it was called like statistics in psychology or something like, or not something like, it had to do with stats and psychology, but really it was not statistics. It was like, this is how you code an equation when you want to do something. And I was like,
was it an R?
It was an R, yeah. It was like
yeah.
statistics and R or something like that. But like it was actually, I like didn't do that bad. Like I think I got like a B plus, but there was no test. It was like each week there was an assignment you had to do,
Okay.
and you just submitted that. And then your grade was based off of that the whole time. And then you made a website at the end, but like it was like using like a Google websites or something. And then
Okay,
you
cool.
basically like coded the background and all that. But yeah, I'm
You know,
blabbing.
all of these though are, I feel like, are really useful skills to have because like they come up a lot after, like especially websites.
That's true. Like, yeah, I remember even in high school, like civics and oh no, what was it? It was like business or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe yeah, I did like a website on Google. It wasn't like as much coding type stuff, but I probably could like use website skill, go back to my notes and do that. But I probably would just hire someone to do that for me later on because I don't want to
Yeah, fair
stress.
enough. Yeah, you don't have to be like an expert in everything. That makes a lot of sense. But I mean, you're like 2 courses in now, so maybe like internally your outlook on coding is changing just by that metric. Maybe like the third course is incoming already.
Probably not. Probably not.
Kevin trying to defend coding here.
I
Yeah,
know.
I've noticed like the kind of general outlook towards coding, it very much resembles how I heard like students talking about math, and it's just really interesting to see that. Um, yeah,
You know, as they say on Twitter, the girls who get it, and the girls who don't. And I'm the one
Wisdom right here.
who don't. So
that's the quote in the description of this video. That's
yeah.
Literally.
it. I think over time, like things, I feel like over time things have to get easier for the general public. So like even like website creation, like there's platforms that just help you like drag and drop. So I think over time, like having that knowledge like to the low level details might not even be necessary.
Maybe, yeah. They'll just code an easier one for the news.
You know what works for me, so
Yeah.
I like dragging stuff and just putting them on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like me on Canva, like making a poster.
Literally, yeah.
I'm such a digital artist.
So I guess like one thing we also want to touch upon, you had mentioned fishes, and I think you mentioned like your current research is around rats. Um, I dropped out for a little bit there, but if you haven't touched upon it, like could you maybe tell us a bit more about that research?
Yeah, for sure. So to back it up a little bit, we'll start with what I use. So the treatment or the drug that I use in the rats is called propionic acid or PPA. I'll refer to it as PPA now because it's a long word. So essentially, PPA is endogenous in all like human bodies or like rats and all that stuff. So it's a gut metabolite that's created from like the fermentation of complex carbs. So it can like the amount in your bodies can increase based off of what you eat, but it's like something that's already inside of us. And what's interesting is that studies show that there's a like very elevated amounts of this in people with autism. So people have always, or scientists were like, okay, so does this have to do with like the onset of autism? Like, is this part of the etiology of that disorder? So a lot of research.
Sorry,
Oops, sorry.
what
Go
does
ahead.
etiology mean? I
Oh,
might just jump in to kind of clarify words here
that's
because
okay. So it just means basically means like what the cause, kind of like the build up cause, like the etiology of cancer is like mutating cells type of thing, right? Or like lots and lots of cells. So the etiology of autism might be something genetic or propionic acid. So whatever is like behind the cause or of it. Does that make sense?
It's frozen again.
Um, so there's been a lot of animal studies before even I started with this in the last like 10, 15 years, looking at PPA in rats. And basically, it shows very similar symptoms of autism spectrum disorder or ASD. So, like, you'll inject a rat, they do intracerebral ventricular injection. So, that's basically like right into their brains. They put like a little cannula implant and then like just goes right into their brains. And then that has shown effects where they're like decreased in social activities. So as you know, people with autism have social issues or communication issues sometimes. So they noticed that rats were way less social, like significantly less social when they had this injection. And then they did injections in different parts of the body. So they did intraperitoneal, which is the gut area. And that area also showed the same effects. So you have less social activity, you have hypo or hyperactivity. So hyperactivity is like, you know, when you get a little crazy. And then hypo is when you're very like slowed down. And since autism spectrum disorder is a spectrum, you know, we have the hypo and hyperactivity occurring in different people with the disorder. So they've seen both in rats as well. So what I'm doing is seeing if it affects habituation to social stimuli. So sensory processing, there's some issues with that in autism spectrum disorder. So habituation is when you kind of have a decreased response to repeated stimuli. So let's say, even when you're just like looking around, you focus on the thing that you are focused on. So right now I'm looking at my laptop, I'm not really paying attention to the random mess in the corner. So that I'm habituating to the environment, and I'm like not focusing on the things that are like in my
peripheral.
I can't even speak, in my like my vision.
Peripheral vision.
Yeah, there we go. Like, what's the key word I'm looking for? But yeah, maybe somebody with autism would just keep kind of like, even also with ADHD,
going back and forth.
Yeah, like it's kind of like, oh, I'm getting constantly stimulus. Or people with autism don't really like being in like overstimulating environments, right? Because habituation is a little harder for them. So like when you're in a mall, you hear all these random sounds, see all these bright lights and stuff like that. So I'm seeing—
So is habituation like the ability to focus on one thing rather than like jumping around? Is that what it means?
So there is that. It's kind of like, it kind of adds attention, because paying attention is kind of like habituation in a way, but habituation is more decreased activity after repeated stimuli. So they kind of play hand in hand, but I just gave like a real life example. So the one I'm using for habituation is like, I'm looking at their habituation to social stimuli. So I have like a petri dish full of like a social odor. So literally poop scooped from another rat in this petri dish. So rat
Scientists always have great names.
You know me. Poop scoop, yeah. The excrement, if you will, yes, from other rats in this petri dish here. So in a lot of animals, like odor and communication is important. So like, you know, like pee kind of marks territory or is like dominance. But this was just like a rat that, like a novel rat or conspecific that they don't know. So usually it's really interesting stimuli. So the rat, I would expose this rat to the same stimulus for 3 days in a row. So across each day, you would expect the rat to like go less and less and less towards the smell. So yeah, that's the habituation part, if that makes some sense.
Oh, okay. So if it still smells it as a very new smell, or it's like still very interesting, that would mean like something is wrong, because you would expect it to kind of get bored of the smell over time.
Yeah, pretty much. And then on the 4th day, I put in like a different rat smell. So then you would expect the rat to go to that smell right away and be way more interested. So
I see.
Yeah. But so far the results are like meh, but the results do show that PPA has an effect. So like the rat will self-groom a lot more. So that just shows that they're more anxious. So higher anxiety is also something with ASD. And the rats are also hypoactive. So they're like a lot slower and less like active around the like cage thing that I put them in. So it shows that the drug works, but the effect that I want to see is like not really there. But I'm doing another batch in like a week, so we'll see.
And how much time do you have to spend like kind of collecting that data? Because you have to like watch them, right? How they react and everything.
Yeah, so I videotape every interaction. So each tape's like 10 minutes. And then I have like 20 rats. So 5 days, 20 rats, 10-minute videos. There's like 100, right? So it takes a while. But like luckily the other parameters I don't have to like manually score. So we put them in this like automated activity box thing, and it has like laser beams to like track all their vertical and horizontal movements. So like the
Wow.
hyperactivity, or like how long they stay near the smell versus how far away they are from the smell, that I don't have to like manually do. I just literally like can click things and say, okay, take this data, put it on an Excel sheet, and then like make sense of it and then graph that. So I try and get all that done first. Yeah. And
all
then
the
I watch.
coding that goes into it, eh?
Yeah, that's yeah. Believe it or not, that is like 30 plus years old too. Like we have like an old system. Like I'm using like a fat box computer in that lab.
Oh no.
My professors are like they're like professor emeritus, so they're retired. They've been retired, and they've tried to get like a new system of the same thing we have, but then they just get denied because they're like, well, if it ain't broke, you can still
Oh,
use
it's just
it.
a funding issue? Wow.
Yeah, they literally they're just like, no, we're not gonna give you a new one because you don't need it. So I'm like, what if I just smash everything with a hammer? Or like
Honestly, I mean, I feel like one part that's not being considered there is like you could possibly supercharge like the research process and like allow like researchers to do so much more by upgrading their equipment.
Oh, 100%. Like there's like I used for a different project, I was using this thing called a catwalk. And essentially it's like a glass bottom like bridge type thing that where you put a rat in, or you can even do like a cat. Like it's decently big because cats are like liquid, right? They just fit anywhere. But you basically you walk across this platform and there's like a light underneath, and the system, also automated system, literally tracks the paw prints across the platform, and it can tell you like the speed of how fast they walk, if their like paws are crooked. So usually they use that in like spinal cord injury, seeing like how bad like their walk is, and then when you have treatment and you go back like 4 weeks later, see if it's improved. So I was like, oh, does PPA affect like the balance of somebody's walking? Because like a lot of people with ASD have like difficulties like in their movement. It's not very like smooth. It's kind of like sometimes crooked. So it just depends where you are on the spectrum. But like I was like, oh, that would be an interesting something to look at. But yeah, 0 results there. It was just like there was no difference. And I was like, I love wasting my time. But that's but yeah, that was really cool.
The scientific process in general like seems very like a lot more difficult than even like previously that I thought, because like something I that kind of made sense to me recently is this idea of like cause and effect. Like we've always heard like correlation, not causation, like trying to differentiate those two, but I didn't realize like how difficult that is, because even in the beginning how you said they noticed higher PPA levels in people with autism, like for one, like I wonder like how did they even like just get that information and then to make that jump and be like, okay, like let's see how this relates to this other thing. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of like poking around, just like trying stuff until it kind of makes sense.
definitely. You know, interestingly, they find like a lot of the PPA stuff from like fecal studies. So it's literally like looking at their poo.
But
Interesting.
why are they looking at their poo? That's the next question.
I guess like when you're looking for like something else, maybe because a lot of people with
Right.
ASD actually have like digestive issues or like some problem with the gut. So that might play into it as well, like or like eating restrictions and stuff. So there's definitely a big correlation between like gut issues and ASD. So I'm like, oh, geez. So that might have been something, or even like just like drawing their blood, like their blood serum levels of PPA also might be higher as well. So I guess it's just like, oh, they found something and then someone else found something and then like everybody started finding the same thing. I'm like, wait.
Then everyone just like races to like find something a bit that like, kind of states a cause. But I feel like a lot of times it's just like ends up being kind of no result, or like results kind of just redundant or something like that.
Or like somebody will have a completely different result than you. That's what's great about research is a lot of people have already done something similar. So you just base your project off of what already worked for someone else, but like give it a little twist. Like that's like
a little bit.
Yeah. Like, nobody starts from scratch unless it's like something like so novel. But like every
Right.
supervisor will always be like, okay, base your thing off of this thing because this worked. So let's see what happens for you. Like something like that. Just to avoid the problems.
And also to avoid like, because if there's already research about it, that means like they accounted for like confounding things. So you don't have to do that yourself. You can just focus on whatever you're changing.
Exactly. So much less work.
Exactly.
I know this is like a concept in history as well, like among historians. It's kind of like working off the work of the Titans, kind of like the people before you, and you kind of build upon that knowledge. So I guess like that incremental change allows us to be a bit more like critical of like the ideas we're presenting, and like we're not just making random big leaps around saying like
Exactly.
this is true, this is true. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're not going to build a house from eyeballing it. You're going to use the blueprints, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely very cool. I mean, so like how much time is left between like the beginning of your studies and like now? Are you just about done now?
Um, no, I'd say like I'm just over halfway because I started September 2020. I'll be done September 2022. So it's like a
Okay.
full 2 year thing. Yeah. With grad studies, like you don't have like summers off. It's more just go, go, go until the finish line.
And
But
And
how
yeah,
is
do you
it?
think,
downtime. Sorry, what?
sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
I don't know who's going.
You go, you go.
I don't remember what I was gonna say.
I'm sorry. I also forgot.
Okay, I'll pick back up here. I was gonna ask, like, do you think you're gonna be like dipping your foot into more research? Like, are there any other kind of topics or studies that you have thought like would be interesting to explore?
Yeah, but they're mostly still similar to what I'm doing because with a master's, like at the end, you have to write your master's thesis and it kind of all has to tie together. So I would definitely still work with PPA and habituation, but maybe just like change the paradigm or like the way I do my experiment. So I already like have an idea. So instead of doing it across like 5 days, I was like, okay, why don't I just do this all in one day and expose every
Uh,
rat to every odor type? So that like, because usually you have like your control group, right? And then your treatment group. But I'm like, what if they're all in the same group? Like, except, actually, no, sorry, backtrack a little bit. You have control in your treatment group, but then you also have your like partial control, partial treatment group. So I'll expose them to like a social odor or non-social odor because I'm looking at habituation for like social things specifically. But then if they don't habituate to the non-social thing, it's like, okay, maybe this has a general effect on habituation in general. So with that, I was like, okay, how about I just have like my PPA and my control group and then expose them both to the social versus non-social odor, but in one day. So one experiment that I'm basically copying this from, they have like the odors on a Q-tip and the cage is like covered. Basically, you put the Q-tip in for like 2 minutes with one odor, take it out for 1 minute, put in the next odor, and then repeat it. And then basically they'll show habituation there as well. So like, oh, I'm not interested. You just show me this 10 seconds ago versus, oh, this is new. Let me sniff type of thing. So I feel like that would also give me potentially better results and it would be so much faster because doing things across like so many days is torture. That's okay.
You know, you said like something interesting in that like you want to stay in that kind of same area of research. Do you think like that's with a lot of like other people that do research? Because I feel like they just stick to like one small area and kind of like keep not repeating, but just like doing little modifications to their previous research.
Yeah, it's definitely much easier staying with what you know because then you're already an expert in that field and doing like slight modifications each time that will give you like a really good opportunity to like write a paper and then get accepted for that paper and have a published paper because a lot of journals that publish these papers like seeing the results for like multiple different things. They'll always be like, oh, you did this, but what about this? And if someone only did like one study on it, they'll be like, oh, well, do another study and then we'll think about it type of thing. So
Yeah.
plus yeah, I think a lot of people do tend to stick with something that they get like results from at least. If they don't get results from it, they tend to like change things and move on until they do. And then once you have like a good result, it might open up more questions, and then you have a lot more opportunities for research. So like research with like sex differences or like hormones, that type of stuff is like never ending, because it's like, okay, well, you have this, but what about this hormone? And what about this receptor? And what about inhibitors? So there's like endless endless opportunity. For me though, actually my PhD, I'm gonna change it up a little bit, but that's just because like I'm like gonna go to a different school, so I'm like, I might as well just change it all. I'm actually interested in studying like addiction and memory, so that'll be interesting. Also rats, gonna keep it
of course, the rats.
No more fish.
No
Fish are all in the past.
Fish are the best. Fish are a little too scary for me.
All right, yeah, that was very a lot of like interesting insights. I don't think like one thing that definitely stood out to me is I don't really appreciate the level of commitment that goes into those who pursue research, because like at least in my field, like there's a lot of, I tend to get bored and want to jump around, use different technologies like in like the development world. So yeah, definitely I think I have a greater appreciation for those who have to like kind of very like stay focused on the research topics and kind of like, again, as we said, the incremental changes. So yeah, thanks for all this like great insight into the world of a graduate student.
Of course.
Is there anything you'd like to add on to it, or?
Probably not. No. But you know what? Maybe a little bit. Okay. If you're super into coding and have a little baby interest in research, there's so much opportunity in neuroscience, because they love people who code, or like anybody who's like so good at technology, because you can make new technology for us. So even at Western, like there's labs who do like simulation, like computer simulation stuff. So if you're interested in grad studies at Western, there's definitely opportunity there, and they'll pay you to go to school. So think about that.
That's always an interesting point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was another big thing about, sorry, that was another big thing. I'll just do the last very big baby snippet. But yeah, another big thing about going to grad school for research, so you don't have to pay tuition. But if you want to do medical school, you're gonna be poor at the end. So
all right, thank you so much for your time. We loved having you here.
Of course, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Kashmeira. Take care.
Bye, guys.